reports in a minute. Oh, it does. It's like, really?
You're on, Mayor.
Well, it's 6:30, so I'll call this regular meeting of the Sturgis Common Council to order, May 15th, 2023. First item's approval of the agenda. Got a first by Becca.
Second.
Second by Preston. Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. We've got an agenda. Please stand and join us for Pledge of Allegiance. Item 4 is informational reports. Because they're under informational reports, they're just basically a step in the process. As we move forward, there'll be more actions that come out of this and further opportunity for discussion from council and public. But item 4.1 is a presentation about the Sturgis Soccer Complex Upgrade, and Richelle is here to speak to that. So I'll turn it over to you, Richelle.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. So I just wanted to stop in real quick and discuss what the Sturgis Soccer Association has been planning on doing with our current complex down on the S-curves along Highway 34. We have an east end and a west end. We've noticed the last several years the east end has been shifting. So what we have decided to do and have begun the process of is fundraising for a total of $1.4 million to AstroTurf that east end of the complex. That's the one with the big Sturgis logo in the middle of it. And so since we do a lease agreement with the city, we wanted to let you guys know that we plan on investing basically $1.4 million into the property. $900,000 of that is the cost of turfing one regulation high school sized field, and then bringing in bleachers, shade structures. Would love to upgrade the bathrooms that are down there as well, and just some other little things like that. I know a couple weeks ago in the claims there was a question about the hotel bid. They did just grant us $10,000 a year for 10 years for a total of $100,000 to help us towards that fundraise goal of $1.4 million. Sweet and simple, and just wanted to give you guys a little update.
How about current level of fundraising complete?
Current level of fundraising complete, we're right over the $600,000 mark.
A lot, yeah.
We've raised a significant amount to go towards this project. I don't know if you've driven by, you've seen the learning center that was put in. We will be finishing that this summer, hopefully. That will be where we can go take the kids in out of the elements and teach them the tactical and technical skills of playing soccer, going over plays and stuff. Just a few stats. We just did our spring tournament. We had 66 teams registered. We did have to turn away approximately 10 teams due to our footprint. We are not big enough to host anything more than what we had of the 66 or 68 teams. On Saturday, we counted at what point 2,500 people down at the soccer complex during that tournament. So.
Any questions from council for this informational report? Appreciate the update.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Item 4.2 is a presentation of the Aquatics Park conceptual renderings. We've got Kyle and Megan here, and we got 3 people total, it appears. But what I wanted to make clear on this step in the process, this is pretty early stages of what the council foresees for the conceptual steps as we move forward in this design. I know there's been some presentations with the Infrastructure Advisory Committee. We want to bring it to the full council. It is an informational report. Council is, if you have any questions, please ask them when you deem necessary. But with the public, it's not to a point where we're looking for public comments during this public meeting. There is some cards that we have around that we want to gather and make sure when your thoughts are present and current, we want to get those jotted down and turned into us. We will review them and bring them back at a future meeting of what was spoke about on those cards. So I'll turn it over to the folks with the presentation on the conceptuals of the Aquatics Park.
Thank you for having us this evening. I'm Megan Kingsbury from Vanocker Development. We're pleased to present to the council and Mr. Mayor our work to date on the Sturgis Aquatic Adventure Park. I have with me Kyle Treloar, he's partner, president of Vanocker Development, local Sturgis resident. I have to my left Matt Friedel from Tallgrass Landscaping. We should have Ron Romans from CRS. Do we have him in?
He's not on the phone. He's come on twice and come off, so I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your assistance with that. We'll keep our presentation to approximately 30 minutes this evening. Matt, I'll turn it over to you to kick us off.
30 minutes, but approximately 700 slides, so strap in. Okay. Thank you. Matt Friedel from Tallgrass, and I'm just going to walk us through the presentation that we have tonight. There's a few things we'll do. We'll say hi. We'll talk about the site and what we've learned looking at it so far. We'll explore the idea of the adventure park a little bit, and then look at the preliminary concepts and talk about our next steps. First off, the schedule started here and really in the beginning of April, and we've been at this for about a month and a half, and just long enough to really untangle some of the complexity of the site and what we're doing here. The idea is that tonight we'll talk about these concepts, and then over the next few weeks we'll take comment and talk about their pros and cons, and from that we'll move ahead with a final concept that we bring back to you. That would be a conceptual drawing that you approve of, and then we take that forward through construction documents and bidding throughout the summer, and so working for the next several months. So tonight we're talking about concepts. So you all are very familiar with the location and the history of this, just south of town, and what seems like a very logical place for the community to grow as it stretches out. The parcel we're in is approximately 70 acres along Junction, right where it turns into Vanocker Canyon Drive. And approximately 12 acres has been designated on the west end of that for the park. Some of that is just entry drives, and there's room for some housing in that area, and it contains a commercial component. So you can see Junction is bordered by, I guess, highway service and commercial property, but you can see that the way that Junction is bordered, it makes sense that there's residential adjacent to it. So this is feeling like it's fitting in well and providing a park in this drainage where across the road there's already other park-like activities happening with the disc golf and whatnot. And that drainage, of course, has some floodplain in it, as we know. And of course, we're going to be working in that, so a LOMAR will be required in part of our process over the summer. It's kind of interesting to look at the map. There's two drainages that are cutting through the site. There's the low drainage on the east side that goes up, goes under the tracks and to the north, and then there's another drainage that's on the top side of the site. So it's held back by a berm that divides it, and I'm sure you might have driven by and taken a look at that, but those are two separate pieces.
Is LOMAR an acronym for something?
It's a letter of map revision that is proposed by our engineering team and adopted by FEMA, yes. we like to think about the trails for this project and thinking about this site as a natural trail hub for a lot of what's going on as you go up the canyon and connecting into this, what's going on in the city and the energy that you have here in Sturgis around trails right now, which is just a wonderful growth in the hills as a whole. Being from Custer, I think I'm really jealous of the action you guys have. We tried it doing some of that down there. And anyway, this particular site fits in well, and you can see that there probably be some connective pieces that happen over time with trails. But this will serve as a great jumping off place for people going to explore the hills too. So that's something we're keeping in mind in this project as we go forward. Looking at the site, this is some aerial views just looking east here. You can see Junction in the foreground. A little bit to the right there, you can see under the road that upper drainage coming through, and then that field in the foreground stepping down to the valley bottom there. And the area where we're looking and is drawn in these plans is all that area in the foreground. So you can see we're right next to the interstate. There's great adjacency there. As you rotate, looking a little more northeast, Bear Butte pops up in the background of this, but it's not visible from the site. Looking north, you can see connecting back to town. Junction goes under the interstate there. And this site is really just right there on the south edge of town. Looking back west, you can see that residential development popping up along the foothills. And looking south, you can see here we are right at the mouth of one of the coolest canyons popping out of the hills. So that's where we're at. And it's kind of worth just looking at the site and thinking about this. That valley coming through that's the low area in this picture. That's that main drainage. It has a big flat bottom to it, right? And that steps up to a shelf that had a berm built across it that provided that drainage separation, and all happened over time with the roads and whatnot, but it's just an interesting feature on our site. Here's what it looks like on the ground. I don't think the cows are a permanent part of our plan. I think special occasions, maybe.
Yes.
Can have a special bring your cow to the park day at the end of the season. Top is the view from the south end, looking pretty much down the property line, might be a little bit south of the property line right there. You can see that hill along that south end. The one tree hope we get a save. And then from the north end, looking back to the site, you can see from the train crossing, when you come up over that rise there at the train, you're going to be looking across the site to whatever's planned there. So if you're looking at the plans, you'll be looking from the top left down. That's that bottom view. A couple more views that are interesting. Here's one from just about at the overpass over Junction. So you can see that if there's flags or buildings up there, you'll be able to just see them popping up over that hillside there where the track is. From the east, looking over, it's going to be a little harder to see that just in the mix of background noise that there is. But coming from the west, it'll be part of that. Right now, at least, it'll be pretty clean when you look over there. You'll probably be able to see anything that's poking up above the horizon there. And so this is the original plan that was proposed with the tax increment district, showing the primary components of this. And that consists of that aquatic recreation feature, the water. The red area shows the park. There's the beach shown there. There's that commercial component shown up on the north end there, and the trails connecting through the rest of the development. So you can see how trails connect up to that northwest corner, bring people through the park, connect them down to the southwest corner and other places within the park.
So you're saying the red line is the trail, is that what you mean?
Yeah, the orange and the red lines are both trails in this diagram. Yep. The yellow and green are not. Those are just boundaries of the, yep. Yep. Okay. Some of the main issues is the railroad berm catches water and holds back that floodplain there, and that's causing some of our issue with the floodplain. There's an entrance at the north, an entrance at the south. There's another entrance built into junction right in the middle. The floodplain is the low area there, all throughout there. We've got a housing pad coming in from the east side and housing on the south too that are all coming into this area that's designated for the park, and we want to make sure to balance those and see how they fit into the park and the different uses that we're proposing. So when we think about what this is not just a park, it's not just a water body, it's this place that's really activated by people coming and participating in some really fun events. And you can see on the water there, the sports park, the beach is just a great place to hang out. And there's other recreational features just built into this whole facility. So it's really geared around being, it's more than just a come and visit and play park. There's things that you might be paying for to use as part of this park. And when we think about the character of it, we think of it as really having a great like individual experience. You know, you were going to go around, kids will be playing, they'll have fun little nooks and corners to be in. And so as we're planning this, we're kind of thinking about how there's really unique features throughout it. And of course, we have some topography on this site. And I guess I was alluding to that before, but there's actually quite a bit of topography. There's, I'm forgetting, it's at least 60 feet across the site, more than that. And so there's going to be some opportunities for things to happen on the slope. And of course, the region has great parks, you know, that are sometimes rougher because of their love to death. And I think that as part of this, we're really thinking about how do we design this for maintenance and be easily maintained over time throughout the year in a good state. And here's a picture of some of these activities in another park. And if you've been around this discussion for a while, I'm sure you've seen this picture. So that's a Whibbit out there on the water. There's the Zoom Flume slide in the foreground, the docks, there's, you know, kayaking, there's other things like that. So that's a character of activity. You can see there's somewhere between 50 and 100 people out there on the water. Another thing about this is just the relationship to water. So you want to go to the beach and sit up and look down to the water and be able to see what's going on, see your kids playing, see the people that you know, and have good prospect. So when we think about the elements of the program, the water body is a primary one, and we've been talking about it as a 2 to 3 acre water body that would serve the purpose that we need. And so some of the key points with that is that it's constantly filled to level, it's completely lined. Every couple of years you may drain it and let the water out and just do any maintenance that needs to be done. There'll be fish and plants in the water, and that's done to maintain the water quality. It's designed to have almost no stormwater runoff into the lake. So, and it's really built specifically for active recreation. So the shape of the bottom of the water and everything is designed for that. When we think about site management, the park itself is, in these plans that we're looking at, it's not completely figured out where every fence or every boundary is going to be. We'll work on that as we get into the concepts a little bit. But right now we know that we're going to design this so that there are some areas that we will be able to regulate who enters and who gets out on the water. So like if you have that sports park on the water, you want to be able to control who goes out there and when, and the duration of time that they're out there. That's just an important part of the management. Did Ron get back on the call at all?
No, it looks like he's tried, but it doesn't stay on.
Okay. He'd be able to speak to this a little bit better than I, as he's literally the international expert in this type of facility. But
Sure.
so one thing I can say is, in general, those specific areas of the park that are designed for limited access during the summer months, during those busy, fun months, you know, the end of the season or even the end of the day, you just open that gate and it's just a regular water body that can be used by anybody. That's if it's during the duration of normal park hours. So, hi, Ron.
Hello.
Can you hear us, Ron?
I can. You're a little faint, but let me get to a quieter spot as well. Thanks for calling. I tried the conference number a couple of times and no success. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Go ahead.
So, Ron, I've just introduced the concept of site management here at our park, and wondered if you might talk through those couple of slides a little bit.
Okay. I don't have the slides in front of me. I'm calling off of from a remote location, but I can talk through them. I'm not sure which ones are up, which slide is up there first, but with regards to the site management, I think it's going to be very important to manage the site to get the design laid out. So with really managing the flow of people on how they come into the park and understanding how we want the people to come in and possibly how you want to monetize it. If there's an upper park and a lower park, you know, potentially charging a ticket to get into the beach or some type of an admission, and then also for the attractions that are out on the water. So if, you know, in the design, we want to manage the flow, and then we want to set the buildings and the different amenities in relation to each other, so people are moving to them and through them, but it's not creating bottlenecks at places where they need to maybe point of sale, concessions. After people go through that, then they have to get fitted for life jackets, have orientation, and some of the things like the Wibbit Park. You know, you may have 100 people at a time going out onto it in the summer, or even more than that, and you might have 100 people in queue. So that lower beach area, which will be, I think, a primary attraction during the summertime, is going to be important as to how the pieces are laid out and how the rest of the park is designed to allow flow down into that region in that area. So we've been paying a lot of attention as to, you know, the pathing and the flow and, you know, from proximity of people coming into the parking lot, how do they enter into the park and how do they move to these different elements? Now that's primarily for the summer season. The operation during what I would call the high season. Then that aspect of the park really gets activated or turned on during the summertime. And you have your staff, your lifeguards, and you know, your guest services people, your point of sale, your concessions. After the summer season, that portion of the park really gets deactivated, and you don't have those staff, and now it's open and more free roaming, I guess. You know, so it turns into a very, you know, we want it to turn into a very just an excellent park to be utilized in all the off seasons. But during the summer season, we want to design so it can be activated and it can be managed well. So does that, any questions on some of that?
Ron, I put up the last slide that has the pay-to-play attractions that
Yes.
shows the different attractions and their different types of categories.
Yes. Okay, and you'd like me to just speak to those different attractions and those different types of categories? Is
Maybe
that
just
correct?
briefly, yeah.
Yeah, so on the different attractions, we want to address both active recreation and passive recreation, and we want to address the different age groups. So I think one of the larger attractions, on the pay for play basis is probably the sports park or the Wibbit, the big inflatable park. Typically, that type of scenario is people would buy an hourly pass or a 2-hour session, and you would cycle people out on the hour. At 10 minutes to the top of the hour, people get their life jackets, they go through orientation. At top of the hour, they go out through a entrance that we would have buoyed off. They swim out to it, play for an hour. It gets to be about, to the like 12:50 or 12:55. Those people exit, and while they're exiting, there's another group that is waiting to go out. And when that group exits, then they go out. So all of those people are in life jackets. They're deep water. It's very active recreation. Also, the pay-to-play attractions would be stand-up paddle boarding, pedal boats, kayaks, and those type of things. Those would typically be a pay-to-play type of activity. The umbrellas and chairs, probably beach rental types of umbrellas and chairs where people could get a setup for a day, or a family could come to the beach and rent a shade umbrella and chairs. People could also bring their own, chairs. We're talked about a zoom flume water slide or a large tower that a slide would come off of. That may also be a pay-to-play attraction, or that could be bundled in as part of the beach pass. And then also there's a shallow water zone with items for the younger kids, the 7 and under crowd. That would probably not be a pay-to-play. That would probably general use for the younger kids. Also, we have miniature golf in there as a pay-to-play attraction, but miniature golf is a little bit different business model than the beach, where miniature golf a lot of times is a late afternoon and even early evening, and that attraction would actually get a lot of utilization both in the spring and the fall. The other amenities in the park, the splash pad, the playgrounds, the shelters, the walking trails, all those in the upper park, they might be available at no charge items if we were to use a beach pass with we call it a secondary gate or pay for play attractions.
So that's the way that we're thinking about the management of the park. Does that all make sense to everybody? Any questions for Ron right now? Okay. We're going to keep on trucking, Ron.
Okay, the comment I think I would make is it's important to design to activate the park in that way. You can always choose to do that, and you can manage the crowd and the flow of the guests very well. Or you can choose not to use that model and have it open, but it's hard to design. You can't go back and design it trying to accommodate that type of model in the future. So we're looking at designing with that in mind on the front end.
And the key with that is to give you flexibility over time as maybe your priorities shift, and just to have that option to be able to change the way that it's managed. But
yeah, and as the owners, as the city, you may choose to operate it yourself. You may choose to have a concessionaire or an outside entity come in. This allows you to manage those different zones and those different spaces, how you would like to manage them, and still create a great guest experience in the overall park, as well as the commercial part of what's happening there.
Okay, thanks, Ron.
Okay, thanks so much. If there's any other questions, feel free. I'm here and available. Just feel free to give me a call back.
Excellent, thank you so much.
Okay, good luck there.
Yep, thanks,
you.
Ron.
Yeah, bye-bye.
So that's important to note that this park is different than other parks in that it has this commercial component next to it, and the park itself has an entity where the people will be charged money to participate in some of the activities. But then also next to it is this commercial space that also activates it. And so the commercial spaces are great for driving energy around the park, bringing people out here. It's mutually reinforcing, right? So you come to the park to play and have fun, and then you have a pizza or something. I'm hoping for a pizza place. And so it also provides constant eyes on the park, probably pretty much 24 hours a day, right? Because businesses have people coming and going at all times. So there'll always be eyes on the park. And this commercial piece is a key component of the tax increment district overall and making that function really well. So the commercial piece is, we're looking for 48 different commercial spaces in that, and the exact configuration of that is being worked out now, depending on which concept we go forward with, of course. But that's a unique and interesting part of this overall park concept as we talk about it. The parking is really important as well, and getting the right amount of that. I think what I can say is that we're not going to have enough parking for those busy days during the summer. There's almost nothing we could do except pave that entire 70 acres to get enough parking spaces out there. We're looking for somewhere in the 100 to 200 for both the commercial and the parking spaces. And so that's a piece that we are evaluating the overall concepts with. So the takeaway, though, is that we'll be looking for ways to accommodate overflow parking for a few of the days during the summer and different ways to do that. The park amenities, the idea is to plan for flexibility and growth over time, and to have reasonable maintenance expectations. You know, you're adding a park to the city's assets, and so there'll be things to do there at this park that are unusual compared to other parks and other amenities that you have in the city. But they are also a way that we can maybe balance our initial budgets a little bit, phase some of the development in a logical way, just depending on how things cost, and actually, I'll just move on to the ride center piece. We're planning for connectivity throughout the park, so you'll see that we're showing trails throughout that, but we also imagine that Valley Bottom could be a great place for some ad hoc trails and fun aspects of the ride center community, looking for ways to connect out into the region, and maybe hoping for that commercial component maybe to connect into that as well. So here we are. We've got these 4 primary components that we're balancing here on our site. We've got the water, we've got this commercial component, this big parking lot, and these different park amenities. And the idea is to arrange these in a logical way on the site that balances the amount of work we need to do to get it accomplished so that our budget is good and makes a really fun and awesome place to be. So really the question is, where's the water? The first plan showed it there on the south end of the site. And of course, you can see in the topography, all those are 2-foot contours dropping down across the site. So that's the uphill end of the site. Another spot is to put it down on the north end in the low spot. And then, of course, another spot in the center. And we looked at this site in this way initially as a way to, like, what are the concepts for how this is arranged, right? Just basically, how can we fit a pond in here in a way that makes sense? So these are the foundation of these concepts that we have here. Another one is, where's the commercial? So commercial could go on the south end, could go in the center, could go on the north. And as we looked at this, what we found is the commercial kind of wants to be long and a long building with multiple storefronts, right? And so that means it needs to either step down the slope if it's going north-south or across it. So that's a factor that we're considering in laying this out, right? And so here we are. We have our three components, or our three concepts: the water south, the water north, and the water east. With the water in the south, the commercial is across the site, so it's flat across the site. The primary parking lot is to the north. With the B concept, the water is in that north end, down in the lowest part of the site, and the commercial wraps around the top side of the site, looking down onto the water. And then with C, the water is along the east side, adjacent to the valley bottom, and with the commercial wrapping around that northwest side of that. And we'll talk in detail about these as we go along, and feel free to add anything that you think is important, Megan. Okay. So I'm showing in these slides, there's two images. Same image, one's blown up just so you can see it. On the right is the overall plan. And on the left, you can see the core of the park. And that's how all these will be set up. But when you approach the park on Concept A here, the parking lot is first thing. So you'll come up, you'll know, right, pull in, park there, and come up to the retail. And really, a lot of the work on this one is filling in that low side there, so the parking lot has a good relationship to the water body. So there's some effort on this one, building that grade up in the low side of the site, so that the water is not above you. It doesn't feel like it's at the top of the hill as much, right? But it still is in this. So you come up to the commercial, you could pass through it around the side. The mini golf is there to the east of the commercial, so it could be run out of perhaps the end commercial unit or something. But you come around, and then the park is then the water body is stretched out before you, and there's a couple different ways we could operate it from here. You'll see we're showing splash pad, playground, amphitheater, beach, and really these things are all right now just our placeholders, right? We're not showing you specific designs because this conversation we're having really right now is not that detailed. We don't know what all those individual components will be. We know that we have a big area for the playground and that there could be a large shelter with it, but what that looks like exactly, we don't know yet. We're just trying to get everything sorted out into the right places right now. So when you look on the water on this, you can see that we're pointing aquatic recreation feature, and then there's a rectangle around it. That rectangle is approximately the area that we'd need for that big sports park facility. It could be arranged a little bit differently. It could be narrowed up so it stretches out across the lake, and you could ride your paddle board around it while there's people on it and stuff like that. So the exact configuration of those things are still up in the air, and if you have comments about that, you should write them down on the cards. But it does get you a sense of how that might work. When you're in the commercial there's this large patio on the south side. Be a cool spot to hang out, look out over the water. The retail itself could be 2 to 3 stories, just depending on what the appetite is there, but could be a upper level deck patio up there that would look down onto the water. Great relationship there. The east or the west side, we're showing a little bit of an amphitheater to help with the grade a little bit, but also it becomes a great area to stage our people that are getting ready to go out on the sports park. There's also a second parking lot on this concept down in the southeast corner, and that's more geared towards the park itself and maybe those ride center activities and overflow for the park itself. So what's that look like? Here's a view from the north side looking south. So that's the view. These are all aerial views, of course, looking at the 3D model, but this gives you a sense of looking across that parking lot to that commercial space, the water body behind it, and you can see the green and the brown as play areas. And all these are the contour lines are showing up here. This model is kind of built like a cardboard model, right? So you can get a sense of the topography as we're looking at this. So here it is from up on the hill looking down. You can see that big berm built along this east side, holding all that up. Here it is from the opposite end of that first one with that parking lot in the front. That down in the bottom right is a maintenance type building for the well and whatnot. And you can see how the paths curve around that. Along that west side, you can really see there's a steep slope coming down to the water. Here's a closer view of that. And no guarantee on the color of the water during the summer right now. I think you can get a sense of it there. And this is an interesting view, just to quickly point out that in the foreground, you're seeing that corner of the property down there. This is the southwest corner of the property is pretty much just left as it is. And that one drainage is pretty much untouched in these plans. Primarily, that happens in pretty much every one of these plans, that corner is pretty much left untouched. Just as a natural area, and that one drainage comes through. So here's the view from the deck looking south. You don't see the mountains in the background there, but that's the view. Concept B, when you come up over the hill, over the tracks, you'll look across the water body and see the slope on the far side. And we're taking advantage of that center entry point and turn in. The parking lot wraps around the back of that. And so people entering here would come in and park and then pass through the commercial to get to the park. So there's opportunities there for engagement and for controlling access to the park as a whole. You can look at those commercial things, and probably if you've looked at a plan or two, you can imagine what goes into each one of those. It almost writes itself on this. That first one would make a great little coffee shop. Second one might make a great restaurant. There's that plaza that's between that second and the bigger block of pieces, so that would be a passage through. And then that bigger chunk has lots of opportunity for different sizes of commercial space. Ending in a plaza there on the east end that could be activated in the wintertime different ways, and the design of that could be interesting for different uses. Since the commercial is at the top of the slope, there's a long path that wraps around the playground and then back around the splash pad that takes you all the way down to the water level. So that's a big long slope. It's kind of cool. There's steps that take you down past there, so there's opportunities maybe for a dry creek bed or something like that, and gets you all the way down to the bottom where that concession building is on this one. And, we're accessing the lake on the south end of it on this one primarily, and so the north end, the further north you get, feels maybe a little more wilder. But there's, this one, the lake is in the low end of the park, right? Okay, so that's what that looks like from that same view from the north, looking across. So you come up over the hill, you look down, you're looking across the water and see the beach and the different play elements stacking up on the far side. We'll just walk around this. You can see the berm on this one feels a little bit lower than the last one. And this green in the foreground on this one is the mini golf in that location. So that one's kind of on the side on this one, and this. They tell us that the mini golf can fit in multiple different sizes, so we can adjust that as we need to. But that gives us about an acre and a half, I think, on this one. Mm-hmm. And here we are from that southwest corner, looking through the buildings, and the side of the coming through the buildings and then being on the water side, you have this great view down to the water. And so from that side, you'll be able to see everything that's happening in the park. You'll be able to look from the playground all the way over to the amphitheater pretty much and be able to see in one glance where all those kids are and who's doing what right now. So that's a great advantage to this plan. Concept C is an interesting one to look at. This one put the water body on that east side, tried to get it low. It couldn't get it quite as low as we would like. Maybe still massage it a little bit. But what happens is from the south end, if you came in that driveway, you would essentially walk all the way around the lake, or excuse me, the water body and the commercial, and you're stepping down at like a 2% grade, just the slightest of grades. But from one end to the other of the park, it's quite a drop, right? So the first commercial building, right there in the center, maybe my pizza place or brewery or what have you, could be right there on grade, and then it starts to step down. So each one of those commercial pieces is lower than the one before it, so that the north one is actually maybe 8 feet down from the other one. And all of those have a relationship to the water where their roof, their second floor, is about at the same level as the path between the water and that building. So the faces of the building facing west are lower than the roof. I mean, of course, right? But the roof then spills right out onto the park and creates this really unique opportunity for rooftop activity. So if you had a restaurant or bike shop or any type of commercial space, you could have special places on that second floor that are geared towards looking towards the water. And of course, you're looking kind of to the southeast, so you got a great view of the mountains and whatnot. So the commercial, more center north, and the park activities then are center south on this one. So here's how that could stack up, and we showed those buildings maybe getting taller than they'd actually be, but gives you an idea of how that could be like a flag. So you can also see some of the challenges with getting the lake to stay at that level, at that medium level there, with some of the retaining walls that start to pop up on that north end. But you can also get a sense of how that road wraps around the outside of the commercial. So here it is. And from the southeast, you can see that park area on that south end is just, it's all dedicated to that. Wraps around the beach, gives you great kind of access into the water and that beach activity. Good control on the site. Here's that, and here's a view looking back from one of the rooftops across the water. So major opportunities with each one. The A one, the commercial and park separate but reinforcing. The commercial is just right adjacent to the water. And B, the water to the north. The water is low in the landscape where it makes sense. There's good views of the park from the commercial areas, and the commercial really works as an activator as you pass through it. It's the same as with A. You'll be passing through that commercial to get to the water. And on the east, the water is a central connector. There's great parking on that one, and the commercial relation to the water is really interesting in that with those rooftop pieces. major issues with each is on A, the water is on the high side, so it ends up being the smallest lake or water body. The south parking lot on A is shown on some of the lots that we add. And one thing about A is that when you come over the hill and you look across, you're going to see the parking lot first and the building. So that's kind of an issue, I think. With B, you'd have to drive a little bit further to get to the entrance to the park. So getting in there from a vehicle and walking down, you got to go a little further to get into it. Southeast parking is also on lots on that one. And with the water on the east, the commercial is really separate from the park activities. It's just the nature of it, and I guess that's an issue, but it's also potentially a pro. And of course, the walls are making that one work on the road there. The other one with C is that the lake ends up being narrow on that one, which we can deal with. It's still 3-acre lake. It's as big as the B, but the water's narrower, so the activities would be, that sports park would be a different design. It'd just be longer. So here's the water sizes. A is about 2.2 as shown, and that's really, it's not just the water, it's the beach, it's everything that's lined. So B is 2.95 and C is about the same. The commercial concept and A ends up being a little bit smaller in that one, and that's not counting second or third floors. It's just showing the footprint. The B concept with the lake on the water body on the low end actually ends up being the least amount of dirt needing to be moved for the concept. C has benefits from that same thing with a little bit more than B, and A really requires some movement to get that parking lot on the north end to work and that water body lifted up in the landscape. Another one is just looking at the amount of asphalt there is in these plans, and so B has the least amount, C comes in second, and A again just ends up with the most, but also has a second parking lot that's pretty large. I'd say one thing to note about these parks is that right now we're showing approximately the same amount of park amenities. There's natural things about each one that are pros and cons, but the park amenities themselves that we're talking about, we're saying they're pretty much the same in every concept. And I guess to that point too, with these concepts, the way we've looked at this so far is that what about these concepts lends itself better to the site to be more cost effective, more maintenance friendly, and an easier lift for us. And so the costs of these parks that we're looking right now are approximately the same. We're not presenting a number right now. We're working on that still, but right now there's nothing about these discerning themselves in cost except for the amount of dirt work and the amount of asphalt that we're looking at and the amount of retaining walls. So those are the differentiators. That gets us to our preliminary recommendation is B right now. And I think we could be talked out of that, and we want to hear the conversation, but there's a few things about B that are great. I feel like I've taken up more time, have I? I think, okay.
And yes, you've taken
Sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Since the prices appear to be nearly a wash, there's things about B that really are great. One is that the water is in the intuitive location in the low area. Has the best water feature shape. It's a rounder lake, I guess. The eyes on the park on this one are really great. You know, you're the commercial pieces are all looking down onto the water. They're, the people watching will be amazing. The water feels connected to the top. Vertically, it's a few feet to climb up to the ice cream shop, but it's right there. It's not a long jaunt. And so the commercial and play have a great relationship where the activities in the park will drive traffic to the commercial, and the activities at the commercial will keep people coming to the park all year long. The slope, when we first looked at this, we're like, oh no, there's a lot of slope here, you know, how are we gonna stick a big body of water on this? But this concept takes advantage of that by making the space on the slope a place to inhabit, where you'll set up your chairs on the slope to look down at the water and the beach. And it focuses on these, it takes advantage of the slope by providing the lowest earthwork number and the lowest asphalt number, and that consolidates that parking into the smallest area of driveways relative to the parking spaces, right? So that's our preliminary recommendation right now. We have comment cards. Our next steps here are just to hear people's thoughts about these and what they think about them. Since the costs appear to be pretty level, apart from those things that we're talking about, I think we can look at this and take it forward with your thoughts and suggestions, and hearing those comments, hearing the things that people like about them and what they think don't work. We'll have a period of receiving comments and then hear directive from you at a future meeting, and then proceed into a final concept design where you'll really get to see what that looks like. And you can see that with the visualizations that you'll get a pretty good sense of what that looks like as we start to fill in what those things actually look like. So once we're there, then we'll be ready to last through the rest of the summer, get to bidding sometime later, and construction, swimming soon. So maybe a pizza. Swimming in January.
Polar plunge.
Does council have any questions at this point for this presentation? Go ahead, Aaron.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, go ahead, Dean.
I know you said that cost was more or less a wash, but from what you guys have seen with other designs and what has been successful, does B fall in that as well as other concepts that you've seen from other areas where this has happened?
I'll speak to that first, Matt. So from a entertainment perspective, which is what this falls under, a family entertainment, it's an outdoor activation space for channeling people and providing the city the options of maximum monetization or minimal monetization. B is the recommendation on that. So if we design to B, that gives the city, or should the city bring in a concessionaire down the road to manage this, that gives you unlimited options of how you would like to manage this if we should continue to design towards concept B from a business revenue standpoint.
One last question from me then. As far as maintenance goes, I would assume that the biggest advantage of B's maintenance would be the lesser amount of asphalt. But is there anything else that stands out that makes one of them more advantageous to the other as far as maintenance?
You know, we're designing it with the wide paths, so there's access throughout. There's a well building, and there's also a building for some of the pumps that do the aeration and whatnot. So in each of these, we've kind of thought about where those might go and are thinking about it more as we go into the final concept, I think. So in each one of those, it works. the one other piece is just slopes, and maintaining sloped lawns is a little more challenging than flat. But this is a sloped site, so we're dealing with that somewhere. And so I think in that regard, one nice thing about B is that the north end does provide you access to the water separate from the, like on this one here on C, you know, almost all the ways you're getting to the water is through the park or commercial. So B gives us a separate way to get in. A does that a little bit too.
Thank you.
And I'll just add to that real quick. There's the overall reduction in hard space will start holding that parking space number up. That really leads to your point on keeping the maintenance down. But there's also things like B doesn't have the same amount of retaining wall and retaining wall height, and just the less structural options that you have built into it, the lower the maintenance. So it's a lot easier to mow a yard than it is to weed eat a slope or to go back in and fix a retaining wall, you know, that it might shift around a little bit. So just in general, it's got those elements built into it to kind of keep that down. But across the board, it's pretty level when it comes to that.
Thank you.
You know, Ron was talking about, you know, the control access as a part of the design. Is that a push in terms of the ease of designing in that control access, depending on how, you know, what we decide to do for pay for play and whatnot? On B, is that consistent across all three plans, or does one make it much easier or a little bit easier when it comes down to access control?
B is strongest for access control as well as people management. The way that we're able to channel people through a specific path, so it takes minimal workforce for maximum folks to move safely through a path, both from an ADA compliancy standpoint as well as an access standpoint from, you know, just families moving their children and belongings up and down the sloped area. B is the best from that standpoint.
Okay. And then,
Sorry, are you saying B or C?
Bravo, B. You're welcome.
and my second question is, you know, but disclaimer, I'm not a hydrologist. I didn't say it all, I didn't express last night. But I did walk the ground a little bit with Tony and kind of looked at the map. And, you know, you look at the drainage there, it doesn't look like there's a lot. You know, you got the stuff coming out of Vanocker Canyon that basically comes into that area where that berm is. And that pushes it off to the west a little bit. That drainage that actually comes through this location looks like it's just kind of like a bowl area up there, high ground, but it's not like in streams, you know, distance away that's pulling a lot of water into that area. That was just, again, I put my two good disclaimers out there. I'm not an expert on this, but just looking at it and then just understanding that I cannot remember a time where we've had any flooding in that area. And I bring those up because as I look at the three different designs, I was looking at it from which one would be, you know, the easiest to protect that infrastructure if you did have some kind of flooding event along there. And again, it may not be a problem, but if it was a problem, which one of those plans would facilitate, be more resilient with those kind of conditions?
Dave, you better get a microphone.
We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, those for can't listen. That's Mr. Richards, who owned the property before we bought it. He said since the 1930s, there's been no flooding up in that area along that stream. So, okay.
So just to add a couple notes, because this is probably the thing that I like about B more than anything is exactly what you're saying.
Kyle, we better get your microphone, yeah. We need a third
Figured I
one.
was loud enough.
And then you're going to have to use it when you get it.
So what I really like about B is exactly what you're saying, and there's little things like having the pond where it is. It's on the downstream side of that. So we've got our major infrastructure up high, right? So we're protecting things naturally from where those floodwaters might come. We have the upper floodplain that kind of cuts through that south west corner. You can kind of see, you know, we've got one where if that overflows, it's dropping into the lake. That's not a good thing in maintaining the lakes. The B concept, we can easily route that down the parking lot and then back over into the other floodplain. So we have that kind of double redundancy in elevations and grades to really protect all the infrastructure on the B. Now, they'll all work, right? I'm not saying it, but from that overall flood and drainage perspective, B is by far the strongest.
Okay. All right, thanks. No more questions.
Any other questions from council? Go ahead, Preston.
Just real quick, I noticed throughout all three, the only one that has a bridge on that north side is B. What's the difference between A and C and the bridge on, having the bridge on B? Just curious.
I don't know what the reason is. That's artistic liberty. There will not be a bridge on any one of these plans.
There we go.
You just crushed the artist's dreams.
That'll be a standard road crossing. But it does look good.
It'd eat into the cost of the project, though.
Yes, significant.
Bring your own bridge.
Right. Any other questions from council?
One piece, I guess, realizing that this is definitely high level yet, and we're looking at locations, but B, which is your preferred piece, and I like the layout. We have quite a lot of slope to get down. I mean, are we able to handle ADA access down to, it looks like to get to the amphitheater under this drawing, it's quite a long serpentine route to get all the way over there without steps.
It is, and that route that goes around the outside of the playground is what gets you there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is a little bit of a longer journey to get down there, but that is designed to be ADA compliant, so.
It'd take me all day to get there.
We'll get you a wagon.
We'll get you a scooter.
Golf carts.
Anything else from council at this point? As been discussed, please make your notes and comments on the comment cards so we can continue to move forward in this process. Probably won't be the next council meeting, but in the very near future, we'll continue on with this design. What do you envision, Matt? 2-3 weeks of taking comment on what we're at this point, conceptually wise?
We can take comment as long as you would like, but it would be great to have a determination about which concept we move forward with in the near future and be able to get to that final concept in June. We definitely would like to be working on it in early June if we could, because we have some kind of longer deadlines that we want to be ahead of. So that said, we need to hear what people think about that, and so that time period needs to be driven by you guys. But we're ready to move forward with any one of these and keep evaluating them. So
Did we put June 6th on the cards?
I think we're asking
Mine is
for
June 2nd.
Yeah, we're asking for comments back by June 2nd on the cards.
Yep.
I mean, you guys can choose to extend that, but we wanted to get that in so that we could be at the next meeting to report back to you on what we've heard from folks. So we'll coordinate getting this data all shared with you and leave these boards and whatnot with you as well. So the comments can be submitted. You can leave them here at the city. You can mail them to the address on most of the cards. I printed some of them before I knew that, so I brought those anyways. But there's an address on there, and then
Email.
Vanocker.
VanockerDevelopment@outlook.com.
And then so June 2nd works really well, I guess, just timing wise to kind of maintain the schedule that was laid out. We'll take them through the phone, we'll take them through email, and the hard copies will have a box set up here.
Hey, Matt, I also assume to do the Lomar, you have to have a final plan so you can have the cross-section and whatnot, so you can
We need
submit
that final concept to be developed so that we can
Right.
submit that.
And
So
again,
that's our goal.
that's
Yep.
an action that goes through FEMA to get approval for a
That's
permit
right.
to be able to do the construction.
That's right.
After the design, so take some time is the whole point, for sure.
Yep.
Kyle, will you speak directly to the FEMA process as
So-
well as to our timeline.
Sure. So just to answer that kind of specific question, once we have direction, the grading is going to be, so there's going to be a lot of more detail that goes into the park and what kind of play structures go into it, or the splash pad, or, the different elements that make up those. The grading, though, is going to be fairly set because we're not going to be moving things around, and we're going to be using this mass graded template. So once we pick a concept, one of these A, B, or C, that is when I'm really going to initiate that LOMAR process to start that. So that's going to move out ahead of, say, the final touches that you're going to see into the park. So really after this phase, we'll get into the grading, and that's when the LOMAR is going to move ahead of the rest of it.
Yeah, I guess the point I was trying to make is I know that LOMAR takes a little bit of time, anytime you're working with FEMA, and so the sooner you can make a decision, we can make a decision on which design, the sooner they can start that process.
Sure, and one last note on it, and we were talking with Public Works today too, is you can make your best guess that you think it's gonna hit a certain timeline, and we feel comfortable that it can, but as we also know, it can rapidly spin out of control and take a lot longer if things are. So we feel comfortable that we have a situation that should be a quick review, but we all know that that can change.
That's a good way to manage expectations a little bit. I mean, we're planning for the best, and we assume that's going to work that way, but you just don't know when you're working with that particular federal agency.
Exactly.
Correct.
Would it be fair to say that with all people involved, we do set a date
Well,
when we want to do this?
I think it would be fair to say that in June, there'll be council action to get the concept done.
What meeting?
I would aggressively say the first, but we want to make sure we have enough time for comments. But as far as comments from the public, I think it's important that we move quickly and gather that information so it is available to come back to council, make an actual action, and move it forward to the next step out of the concepts to true, this is what we're going with, and start the specific design.
And to help facilitate public comment, can we have that on our city website, put on there so they can vote? I mean, possibly through there as well. Just comment, sorry,
Yeah.
not vote. I apologize for that. Comment.
Yeah, we have a webpage ready to go up in the morning.
Okay.
And I'll put the comment card on that too.
Yep, wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else from council? Yep, we'll make sure they're easy to access.
I'm gonna take my tripods, but you can keep the boards.
Well, with that being said, wonderful information, exciting point. This has been quite the process to this point, and we look forward to keep pushing forward and get a final product. So thank you guys for what you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for your time.
Item 5 is announcements and praise. I'd like to take a moment and praise our Heavenly Father if you'd like to join me. Lord, thank you for the ability to come to you in prayer and the ability to meet in this great country, in this great city. We know it's your grace that gives us the faith, and it's through Christ that we are saved, and we just thank you for all of your blessings that you give us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I've got Public Works proclamation here for next week. I'd like to read here, May 21st through the 27th this year. Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of Sturgis. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of Public Works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structure and facilities essential for our citizens. Whereas it is in the public's interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of Sturgis to gain knowledge and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, Canadian Public Works Association, be it now resolved, I, Mayor Mark Carstensen, do hereby designate the week of May 21st through the 27th, 2023 as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contribution they make in protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. And we do appreciate what our public works does, so pleased to do that. I have a couple notes here that include, Rod told us this morning in department head that we have a circus coming to town. It's at the community center tomorrow. There's 2 different shows. None of them have animals, but we do have performers and some activity for families there that occurs tomorrow at the community center.
Further back.
It's in the gym. It's inside even, so if it rains, we're fine. But no animals again, Mike. That's all I've got for my notes. Council have anything to add for announcements and praise?
Well, just per Facebook,
Yep.
the circus has been going on a lot longer.
Anything else from council? Item 6 is Public Works update. So Rick's got an update on spring cleanup. To be fair, this is a city council slot, so we appreciate you filling in and good information to pass on. So over to you, Rick.
No worry. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and the back row told me to keep it quick. So I intend to do that. Just kind of a update of where we are this year for our spring cleanup. We track this stuff from year to year. This year we did haul 117 loads of rubble, 34 loads of metal, 7 loads of grass, 23 loads of branches, which ended up right at $35,639 is what when we look at that, we compare it to those loads based on if those were paid loads brought to our rubble site, and then we look at our man hours and equipment hours, which really isn't too far off of the 2022 spring cleanup. Springs are always a bigger cleanup than the fall. In 2022, for example, we had 118 loads, so 1 load difference. But had a very successful cleanup week, and thank you to everybody that participated. We were able to get it done, and I think we ended up picking up just a few items on that Monday following. So we did get it done in a week, and I guess if you guys got any questions, otherwise I'm going to wrap it up.
Any questions about spring cleanup?
Thank you, Rick.
It's a
Just
great service.
quick
Go ahead.
comment, it's not just cleanup, it's re-up. You put it out there and other
Right.
people pick it up as well. So
We
it
do,
works well.
absolutely.
They travel for that. Yeah. Appreciate it, Rick, and appreciate what Public Works does. Item 7, it's I got a brief amount of information under my report. Payroll for the minutes, the stipend for the transition teams at $8.32 per pay period is extra pay given to department heads that step up on the transition team and help us get through this point in time. 7.2 is the members of various boards and commissions outside of the city council. We do have, I'll just go through these for the minutes and to memorialize them. Park Board members are currently Lana Anderson, Lynn Burke, Justin Bond, Allison Creed, Sarah Lynn, Shauna Sigmund, and Megan Snyder. Miss Anderson has informed Rick that she's she's no longer going to serve as on the Park Board. There are term limits for the Park Board. That's 2 consecutive 3-year terms. None of these appointments are up for term limits at this point, but we will open up to seek applicants for the Park Board vacancies. Planning Commission, the members are Dustin Bostrom. He was this term started in 2024, January. Richelle Bruch started June 2025. Rachel Hale, June 2025. Dusty Kirk, June 2025. Alex Moravec, June 2025. Aaron Rabenberg was June of 2024, and Alex Uzera, May of 2024. That's when they expire. At the end of the respective terms, we have 3 of them that will be limited up per our 2 consecutive terms. And when those do come up for openings, we'll put those up for people to apply for that. Municipal Utility Board, those are Ken Sabers, Sean Meckling, and Ron Waterland. No term limits currently on that board. That's an appointment by me when they do come forward. Library Board, this consists of 7 members. This is both the city of Sturgis and with the county. They are Kathy Anderson, Terry Herman, Kelly Mangdans, Kristen Muner, Becca Zerps is the council appointment. And then from the county, we have Christy Palmer, Cricket, and Lance Shear is also county rep. There are no limits for this board currently with an agreement with the library board in the county. So I wanted just to put those in the minutes and have them memorialized. But as we do have vacancies, in addition to the park board, they'll come forward. But please, if you have interest and want to be part of the community that way, please apply through the online. It's just a front and back form. But please turn your name in and we'll fill those openings. Item 8 is city manager's report by the transition team. We have some volunteers that Lisa's going to come forward and speak to, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, the 4 volunteers are basically the employees of the chamber. We do list them for vehicle liability coverage if they're going to be driving an ATV during one of the events that we co-produce with them. So that's all you have is to notate them in the minutes.
Thanks, Lisa. Item 8.2 is March sales tax. So Faye, I'll turn it over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The taxes are in for March, the sales tax. Sales in the month of March of 2023 were 7.4 higher than March of 2022. Sales for the first 3 months of 2023 were 8% higher than the same period of 2022. In the tourism or the Triple B sales tax for the month of March 2023, these tourism-related sales were 25.5% higher than March of 2022. Sales for the first 3 months of 2023 were 14% higher than the same period in 2022. Thank you.
We always talk about 1 month doesn't make anything, but I think 3 months, a quarter of the year does make a trend, and it appears we're trending in a pretty good condition. So
It does.
appreciate that. Faye, any questions from council for Faye on the sales tax for March? Item 9 is consent calendar. We have 9.1 through 9.5 tonight. I didn't see the minutes in there, and I forgot to mention that this morning. I actually believe that's 9.1.
Yep.
So I guess just we'll call it a typo because that's basically what it is. But 9.1 is certifying the minutes from the previous meeting. And we have setting public hearings and a consumption permit. Does council wish to remove any of those items and discuss them individually? How about anybody in the public? Consumption permit, setting public hearings, or last meeting's minutes wish to remove and discuss individually? None being heard, is there a motion?
So moved.
Got a first by Preston.
Second.
Got a second by Mike. Any last discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
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 Opposed to no. Please note unanimous for the minutes. Roll call, please. Item 10 is claims. Any questions from council on the claims presented tonight? How about anybody in the public? Bernie, you made it halfway. Now you get to come all the way.
Bernie Usera. Going through I didn't get through all the claims, but some of them were rather interesting for me. We're going to start page 4 of 32. I was curious about the rib dinner legislative day. And was this in Pierre? And who went? And why?
There were myself, Katzenstein, Dave Smith, Councilor Forrester, and Deb Holland. We go every year. It's the rib dinner. It's the legislative group. We meet with our legislators down there, visit with them, and we talk about what laws have been coming up and what was going to be on the docket. So.
Okay.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Thanks.
every year, and it's nice to have representation down there, especially Dave Smith actually did speak at one of the hearings.
Good. All right, thank you. And then moving down to, it said stay after council meeting / interstate. And then I just wanted to know who we were boarding for one night after a council meeting.
I bet that was staff when they closed the interstate. Yeah. We have multiple out of town, specifically Rapid City people.
Okay. They all stayed in one room?
I think we only had to find one room.
Okay.
Others found appropriate places.
It's a tight team.
They worked all night. They got it figured all out for this meeting.
Okay.
And I can say that it was much nicer than sleeping on a cot in my office.
Which Marshall has done during storms before.
Well, we should take care of that, make sure he has a more comfortable couch. He deserves it. And then page 10 of 99. What is this, I know it's under sponsorship, but what is this Mecum auction?
That was from Vegas, where we went to Las Vegas and sold the motorcycle with Helping with Horsepower, our Grand Marshal for this year. So that was money raised for rally charities is what happened at that auction. We sold the motorcycle that the city owned, donated to Helping with Horsepower. They fixed it up and then we sold it. And
In Vegas?
yes,
Okay.
yep.
Who rode it out there?
Nobody. It went in a trailer. Mark Marshall took his cot for that one too.
Have the benefit of a cot, I slept in my truck.
We should build that up a little bit. That motorcycle was done by a group of
Yeah.
in tech school at Mitchell,
You're right.
and they did a fantastic job on customization, motor build,
Yeah.
everything, and then it was a donation type thing that the city reaped the benefit from the sale for which fund did it go to?
Well, went to Rally Charities,
Rally Charity.
and then for Laura Clock, our Grand Marshal this year, that's her Helping with Horsepower, and they help vets and troubled youth and things like that with the use of their hands and give them skills.
Okay.
Oh, these are for
Our Monterey, yes.
So we're selling another motorcycle in August. We're one motorcycle out of the 50 that are going to be present at this auction, also to raise money. But it's a very large Mecum expensive car auction, but there are 50 motorcycle slots, and we got one of ours in there. So
And that's here at the rally this year?
right after the rally, it's in Monterey, California.
Oh, it's in Monterey,
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
All right. And then, okay, then I ran into another one on page 5, and again, it was the rib dinner in legislature, okay. And then I thought that this was interesting on page 11 of 99. Anyway, it said auction fee, no receipt, and it was $1,000. Why was there no receipt?
There was an electronic receipt that I received that I wasn't able to print.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Bernie.
You bet.
Any other questions on the claims, council or public? Is there a motion to pay the bills tonight?
I would motion to approve.
Got a first by Dean.
I'll second it.
Got a second by Tony. Any last discussion? We'll go ahead and roll call since we're paying bills. Preston, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Becca?
Yes.
I'm yes. Angela?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
Bills are paid unanimously. Takes us to item 11, which is public hearings. 11.1 is consideration to approve an SEL for the Iron Horse and the Steel Pony Campground. As we look through this packet, we realized it is lacking some needed correct dated documentation. Is there a motion or discussion on this?
Well, Mr. Mayor, with the packet not being complete, I would motion to table.
We have a first by Angela to table the SEL for the Iron Horse.
Second.
We got a second by Kevin. No discussion after a table. All those in favor of the motion to table, please indicate by stating yes.
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 Opposed to no. That motion carries. Once we receive that paperwork, we'll bring it back forward to the council. 11.2 is consideration for an SEL for the Oasis and Fireside. This is at Rally Point during the rally. That packet was complete and up to date. Pretty much what we've always consistently done since the beginning of Rally Point. Questions, comments, concerns from council on this SEL during this year's 83rd Sturgis Motorcycle Rally? How about public input on this special event license? None being heard, is there a motion?
So moved.
Got a first by Preston,
Second.
got a second by Dean, third by Tony. Any last discussion, public or council? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That motion carries for this year's rally. 11.3 is consideration of a transfer of an on-off sale malt beverage license. This is from Reds to Liebeck's 21st Century Inc. Faye, do you want to mention anything about that transfer?
Just that we have received all paperwork, the affidavit for the transfer, and all paperwork is with us.
You bet. Rob or Ken, anything to add on this transfer that's not included? As the council considers, we bring a recommendation forward to the Department of Revenue in the state of South Dakota. They actually issued the license themselves. But in this consideration from council, is there a motion?
I motion to approve.
Got a first by Tony.
Second.
Got a second by Aaron. Any last discussion on this transfer?
At Shenanigans?
It's going to be parked at Shenanigans. There's actually going to be two sides of the building. Per the Department of Revenue, it requires them to have malt beverage on each side. There'll be plans that come forward in the future for the change in construction of the business. Any last discussion? Public or council? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That motion carries. That transfer is going to be moving forward to the state. 11.4 is also a transfer. This is from the Big Rig Park to Camp Big Rig RV Park. This is a change in ownership. Faye, packet's complete.
Packet is complete. I just, they didn't have their sales tax license, but I did receive it this afternoon, so it is complete now.
Wonderful.
Do we know who the new owner is?
It was in.
I've just met their manager. I have not met them. They're, I believe, out of Indiana. Yeah, it's a group. Yeah. I've met one and then did business with one of them at their office, their home office. Oh, it's Illinois. See, I had the I right.
Any questions, comments, concerns from council on this proposed transfer?
Are we getting a little too loose here?
Well, for checking background, you're saying?
We got no idea. Evidently, this is a big corporation.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, they have several campgrounds throughout the United States.
And they fill out an affidavit.
They did, yeah.
That swears there's no felonious background and things like that. So,
Good luck with that.
how about public input on this transfer? Is there a motion?
Move to,
I'll second.
We got a first by Dean and a second by Aaron. Any last discussion, council or public? Chief, no concerns there with anything? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
yes.
Opposed to no.
No.
That motion carries 8-1. 11.5 is consideration for approval of the renewals to the on-off malt beverage license. Somebody's got an appointment.
Rick's just gonna take it.
It is? Goodness. All right, this consideration is for the retail on-off malt beverage licenses for the renewals. Something we have to get to by, I believe, by the end of June, the Department of Revenue, or first
Well,
of June.
yeah, they want
They
it,
want it by the 1st
yeah,
of
they
June.
want it right around the 1st of
Well,
June.
we're doing
yeah,
well
'cause-
then. It's
yeah,
only
so-
May 15th, but.
Yeah, we will
So-
make it. Yeah, they wanted it all by this coming week, so.
Questions, comment, concerns from council on the renewals of existing on-off malt beverage licenses?
And all of them are completed, so.
Any changes in ownership?
Just the two transfers.
Yep.
And that's why we did the transfers first,
First,
because
yep.
now the renewals is on this same list for those transfers.
With the new owners.
With the new
tr-
owners,
yeah.
correct.
And then this morning's meeting, Chief had no concerns with any of these existing or new ownership of malt beverage licenses. Public comments, questions, concerns about this renewal process? Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have first by Preston,
Second.
second by Aaron. Any last discussion? Again, the process is we send these forward to peer in the Department of Revenue and they issue the license. No further discussion heard. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That motion carries. 11.6 is consideration for a temporary road closure. This is a summer street bike entertainment. Tammy has got some information on this new activity.
And may I say just one thing? I've got the resolution.
Oh, yes,
The
I forgot.
This is going to be
Sitting right here.
approved by resolution, so.
So we better, who had the first and second?
Oh, we haven't got that far.
This is for the start.
Oh, this is for the, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm
okay.
sorry.
I was going to say this
No,
is.
this is for hers.
Yeah, all right, we're good. There you go, Tammy.
Good evening, everybody. This is a new road closure. It's a new event that we were tasked with doing this year. We're going to have a stunt rider perform on 3rd Street starting June 28th and go through July 23rd, Wednesdays through Sundays. It'll be a half-hour performance twice a day from 11:30 to noon and 5 to 5:30. However, I am asking for a 90-minute road closure around that time. I'm sure it won't take that long, but the first couple times it may. And then we'll open it up between the performances and again at night. There's a line budget for it that's coming from the BBB Sales Tax Fund. And are there any other questions to this? I have talked to Public Works Director Rick Bush and Chief Jody Vandewater about it, and they have no concerns.
Came forward from downtown bid. Downtown, is that where they came from?
It was from, I was tasked with it from the city manager. I don't know where it came from, if it was from the collaborative meetings or where he had the idea come from.
Any questions, comments, concerns for Tammy from council?
Are there any impacts on businesses or?
I've spoke to everybody except the privately owned clubhouse over there.
Oh. Well played, yeah.
They've all been notified, though. The businesses that are open have no problems with it. They welcome it. I never got a return response from the private house that's on the corner of Sherman and 3rd.
Any other discussion from council?
I do have the contract that he's signed. We're just waiting on council's approval to get it fully executed.
And this is done in resolution 2023-30 is what we added to this. Was not included with the initial packet last week, but certainly available tonight. Yep. Public input on this street closure. Is there a motion?
I motion to approve resolution 2023-30.
We have a first by Preston,
Second.
we have a second by Aaron. Any last discussion? All those in favor of approving the resolution, please indicate by stating yes.
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 Opposed to no. That motion carries. 11.7 is resolution 2023-21. This is road closures and restrictions during this year's rally, so I'll turn it back over to you, Tammy.
This is the road closures in the same format as we did last year. Is pretty standard from what we've done year over year. Last year, we added the 6th Street road closure for Sunday during their bike race. That's just from the alley on 6th Street to to Lizelle Street. So it's just a half a block there, and that was just during the Sunday, the first Sunday. Everything else is the standard that we've always done.
Tammy, question on the slide that shows the traffic and the parking along where Indian Motorcycle is located at. It shows, looks like motorcycle parking on that south side along where Indian Motorcycle is located, and it shows like two-way traffic, but there's no outlet onto Lizelle from Main Street. If it's two-way traffic, do they just go into that parking lot and have to turn around? And just kind of wonder how that works.
That's just been local traffic to be able to get to, like, say, for example, Owens Interstate. We allow it, but yeah, you can't go out onto Lizelle and access that. You actually have to go over to 11th Street where there's a signal. We put a temporary signal there.
And
We've done that for
situation.
5 years now, maybe 6.
Yeah.
Right, and the reason we did that was because of accidents, and we worked together with the DOT, and they pay for half of the signal, and we pay for half of it at 11th Street.
So bottom line is just access to those businesses out there for local folks. And then
Right, it's just a right hand in only off of Lizelle.
Yep, and then when they come down to the west, they go into Owens or wherever that place is, and they
Right.
come back out, and then they come back down Main Street.
Yep, and it's signed there that says local traffic only, no through street.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Tammy.
Any other questions on road restrictions and road closures? First couple weeks in August. Anybody willing to make a motion on this resolution?
Move to approve.
Got a first by Mike,
Second.
got a second by Kevin. Any last discussion, public or council? All those in favor of the motion to approve the resolution, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That motion carries, and we're status quo as last year on road closures. Reports 12.1 is also to Tammy here. This is consideration for open container for this year's rally. So back to you, ma'am.
This will be, I believe, the 3rd year for open container. We've already spoke to the chief, and we're going to do a little bit more signage for it. Basically the same things as last year, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Everything will be beer and wine only products in the open container cup that we sell, and the money goes to the rally charities.
So 10 a.m. in the morning until street
2
closure at
p.m.
2. Yep, 2 a.m. Yep.
Or 2 a.m., I'm sorry.
Can you go through the
Nighttime.
boundaries for us?
Pardon me?
The boundaries?
The boundary map is at,
And Tammy, is that the same as last year boundaries, or is there
Correct.
changes to that?
nope, that's the same as last year. And I believe the year before, Jody?
Yep.
Yeah.
We did add one after this first year. We added all the way further down Maine, but it's
Right,
the same we've been
to
using.
include Larissa's.
Yep.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments, concerns on the proposed lifting of open container ordinance for this year's rally.
Yes, just a final question, and maybe this is more for the chief also, is, based on our after-action report from last year, are there anything that, other than signage, is there any other things that we're doing differently? Any problems that we need to try to mitigate, chief, or just the signage is kind of the key thing that we're trying to see if that makes an impact?
So from a city standpoint, I think signage was probably the number one issue the last couple of years. We need to have them a little more easier to read, visible, all the above. And so Tammy and I have been working together with not only that, but also with all the other events of making that happen. So I'm hoping that's going to help. Also, we've learned that a lot of our establishments don't have enough supervision, I would say, for security wise of stopping the open containers coming out. So we do see quite a few violations. And unfortunately during rally, most of these establishments have multiple exits, so they're hard to staff, which I'm having the same problem, so I understand. But I do believe that is going to be a common issue.
Any other questions for city staff? How about public input? Is there a motion on this resolution?
So moved.
Got a first by Preston.
Second.
Got a second by Dean. Any last discussion on resolution 2023-27, public or council? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
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 Opposed to no. That motion carries. Resolution passes. 12.2 is Sturgis Brown High School kitchen addition permit fees. Mr. Smith, we waited patiently for you. It's your turn now.
Well, this is usually the spot reserved for Rick, last on the agenda, so I guess he got to go first, and now I'll take his position. The item before you, Sturgis Brown High School has submitted plans to expand their cafeteria. Currently, under the current ordinances, the city staff does not have the authority to waive any of the permit fees for schools, churches, things like that. So it's come to you to make that decision. Skull Construction has applied for the building permit for the 14,304 square foot cafeteria expansion at the Sturgis Brown High School, and the plans are currently under review. The project valuation is a total of $7,945,453, which would be $19,813 in permit fees to the city. Representatives from the school district, including Wayne Wormstadt and Todd Battles, have requested that permit fees be waived for the project. The IRS does recognize the school district as a tax-exempt entity. Currently, projects that are permitted for nonprofit 501c3s or recognized organizations are not charged building permit fees. Therefore, granting a fee waiver is in line with that protocol.
Any questions for Dave on this request from the school? How about, go ahead, Aaron.
Historically, has that been kind of our standard operating procedure when it comes down to working with the school district and permitting fees?
I can answer to that, Mr. Mayor.
I think it's a mixed bag, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of is. Historically, when I first started here, it was churches, schools, and everything. They just didn't get charged any fees, but the ordinance doesn't give us the authority to not charge those fees. In going over these things before Daniel left, we made the determination that we would follow the ordinance and charge the fees, and if they wanted to, they could ask for an abatement of the fees or not through council. This is our first time. The rest of them they've paid. So this is the first time, and I think it's because of the $20,000 permit fee that they're requesting that they be waived.
That's quite the project for sure.
It is.
But we've done it both ways. But I think this way gives us the consistency where council has the final say per the ordinance versus changing the ordinance to
Yeah, it's an exception to policy, which is obviously within our realm. I just, sometimes, not that I'm against it at all, it's just consistently, what is the criteria that we would evaluate to make that determination that we want to support an exception to policy? That I'm a little unclear on. Not that I don't necessarily, obviously we're in a partnership with the school trying to develop, the children in our communities. And even though it's kind of pocket change in terms of the overall scope, it is still a big chunk of dollars, and they're trying to maximize as much as they can, in the infrastructure for that school. So I can appreciate that.
Do we have a representative from the school here?
I don't see any here.
Yeah, I don't believe so. And just a point of clarification too, that the inspections will be done by our building inspector along with the designing engineer and architect. So we will have staff time involved in the project.
I think to continue the discussion a little, Aaron, Meade County did the Erskine building, and the city did not charge the county any building permit fees. So, this is definitely in line with what we've done with other government agencies.
I didn't know the school was a government agency.
Well, they're tax collecting.
Gee, I'm right there. We've got history with this school, so I'm a little troubled by this.
Any other discussion, public or council, on the consideration of waiving the school's building permit fees? No further discussion. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to approve.
I'd second.
We got a first by Kevin and a second by Aaron, and you're talking entire waiver.
Yes.
Yep. Any last discussion? The first and second on the floor is for the city to waive the fees for the building permit on the cafeteria expansion at Sturgis Brown High School. All those in favor, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no.
Unequivocally, no.
That motion carries 8-1.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Brings us to other matters that may come before the council. An opportunity where non-agenda items may be brought forward by council or by the public for a brief amount of time and to bring awareness to it. Does the public have anything to add tonight to non-agenda items? How about the council? Before the council. What do you have, Bonnie?
I just have to apologize for my phone. I'm sorry.
We answered it twice.
I'm sorry. I thought it was off, and I thought it was in my pocket. He asked me to step out there, and I went so quickly, I just...
No worry.
We signed you up for new warranty.
Yeah.
We
Explorer's
didn't think you
covered.
were going to supper.
Bonnie, I thought you were going to apologize for missing last meeting.
I barely made this one. I'm still not quite ready to be here, as you can tell, because my mouth has been shut all night.
Well, we appreciate you. Item 14 is executive session. Mr. Marshall, I look to you to give us some description, please.
We have 3 personnel matters, 2 legal matters, and 1 contract matter, Mr. Mayor. No action is contemplated.
No action contemplated after executive session tonight. Is there a motion to go into exec?
So moved.
Second.
We got a first by Dean and a second by Tony. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That carries. It's 8:22. We'll start exec here in about 3 to 4 minutes.
This special guy.
That's what she said.
Readers with built-in reading lights.
That's a sign. When you gotta rock that, you
For those that don't remember and weren't here
Just if you knew whose it was.